Microsoft partner. My name is Crancer, President and CEO of the Crancer Group. I want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us today. So, today I think we have it's not a sexy topic, I guess. So you talk about it, but I think it's something that's actually quite important to all of us in the community, and it's really we're going to be talking about this transition from EA to CSP. But before we get started, just a couple things here. Want to make sure that everyone can use this as a platform to network with each other. So if you feel like you're interested in posting your name and maybe what you do and a contact info, sounds good. We don't use that to contact you, but maybe a good way to say, hey, I'm in Texas. Maybe you need somebody in Washington, or I don't know. But we always want to make this open for you. Number two, we're going to be having some polls here. We have 2 or 3 polls, I think, today. Nothing crazy, but it'll be interesting to get your feedback on some things. And then lastly, please ask questions inside of the chat window, because we're in this every single day, all day, every day, looking at nuances, trying to find loopholes to different things inside of Microsoft Partner Center or working with Microsoft. And so please ask us questions. I've got 2 of my best Alliance guys on the call today. We have Andres Oseguera, who I'll bring in here in just a second, and then David Glantz. He's getting involved in our Alliance program. So they're just constantly looking and searching and sifting, and we found some great loopholes recently. Holy Moses. One especially about if you're having trouble getting your modern work solution partner designation, give us a call, because if you're having trouble adding customers, give us a call, because I think we're going to be able to help you out significantly, very, very quickly, and after we explain it to you, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. And you're going to think, wow, is that actually real? And we're going to say, yeah, because we tested it out. So with that being said, thanks everybody for joining for us. Next month, we're going to be talking about co-op, because once again, we're at the end of the 6 months, right? And co-op is being done. So we're going to talk about how to find co-op. We're going to find how to, maximize your co-op dollars, and then, help you with that. I think the end of the fiscal year is coming up for Microsoft, so we've got a lot of new announcements that will be coming out. So probably a real good idea not only to attend the next one to see if we can help you find dollars that you're just leaving on the table. We found a partner 2 days ago, $165,000. Now get this, $165,000 they had in the co-op bucket. Okay, and then I said, well, hey, let's look back 4 years. I just wanted to see. And they hadn't claimed it in the last 3 years. So just think about that. That's 165,000 every 6 months. Just absolutely ridiculous, right? Here at the Crancer Group, we don't agree that Microsoft should get that money back. We agree that you earned it, and how do we help you get it back? Right, we want to make sure that you get it, and so there's a lot of ways that we try to help out. So please come to the next one. If you have any other partners that you work with in peer groups, whatnot, and they're wondering maybe I have some money or not, make sure you just forward our invite over to them. Let us know, and we'd be happy to talk to them. And as anybody else knows, anytime somebody wants to talk with us, the first hour, we're just doing discovery. We're just talking. So no pressure, when you come to us. Okay. So I think, let me go ahead and present my screen here. I think we want to get into improving, right, the transition for EA customers to CSP. I'm sorry. I went too fast. Let me introduce my cohort today, Andres Oseguera, the great AOC. Andres, could you please introduce yourself?
No problem, Joe. I'm happy to be here. I see some familiar faces in the crowd, so thanks everybody for coming here today. Very excited to share some more information about one of the biggest announcements really over the last couple of years that Microsoft is coming out with here in terms of the transition. What I think is probably a good idea, just to get started, before we get into any of the slides, Sherman, if you're open to it, is maybe giving a little bit of a background. You came from Microsoft 5 years there. So, and we were actually chatting about this before the call. You were there at Microsoft when the CSP initiative started. So I'm wondering if you could give a little bit of background here for anybody who's watching in terms of, what's the history of EA and CSP?
Thank you. That's actually a good segue, a good start here. So, when CSP came out, gosh, was it 2015? I think that's 2000, yeah, 15 or 16. Remember, we were all up in arms. Everyone was, oh, this is terrible, right? We have to actually start doing billing, and we're going to have to become a CSP provider. What does that mean? And I think back then, there was always this thing called the enterprise agreement or open licensing. Remember open licensing, but there's the enterprise agreement. And the enterprise agreement was really a way that Microsoft could, package and bundle all the on-prem SKUs, right? And then they started adding some of the cloud SKUs to it, right? And this was actually reserved for any company that was on the what's called major account list. Now, there's three different categories, but the major account list starts when a company has 500 seats or more, or there's a certain threshold in Azure consumption, right? And it's a major account, and then they're assigned an actual Microsoft rep. So typically, in the majority of all enterprise agreements are with companies that are 500 seats and above, and we'll go into the different classifications in a minute. But there's been a lot of history of channel conflict, with Microsoft, right, and partners. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to partners where they're like, yeah, man, I don't even want to tell Microsoft what's going on because every time I do, they just swoop in and they just offer a super huge discount and I can never compete. Or they swoop in and they take the licensing. They swoop in and, they put us in a position where we can never discount as far as they want to because they'll put people on a 3-year agreement, right? Now, if we so that's channel conflict, right? And there's a lot of that. And even up to almost a year ago, there was a lot of channel conflict, but we've seen a lot of that really dissipate. And that's why I think this is really good to talk about just recently. But, for, Microsoft partners trying to work, some of the bigger accounts, they were always frustrated, right? We couldn't get the licensing, right? You couldn't get credit for all the work that you did. Now, the enterprise agreement was reserved. It was a 3-year agreement, sometimes a 1-year, 3-year, and Microsoft would then add support contracts to that, right? They could add support contracts and that's kind of an impetus of why people were buying these contracts 1, 2, or 3 years. However, I think Microsoft realized in the past 3 years that a few things. One, the channel conflict was really a bugger, but the enterprise agreement was never really designed for cloud consumption. It just wasn't for that SaaS product. It was really meant for basic, front end SKUs that are just, on-prem licensing and whatnot. And I think they realized that, and they decided, okay, we're going to go ahead and make this big transition, into let's just go ahead and do it to CSP. Let's do away with EA contracts. Now we've all been hearing about that forever. I remember even announcing this probably like 3 or 4 years ago, like, hey, EAs are going away. Get prepared, right? Now it's really here. And not only is it really here, there's actually mechanisms to actually do this whole conversion through Partner Center, which is nice because it isn't going to be, it's very interesting. And if any one of you have attended, there was two CSP, CSP training sessions by Microsoft in the past couple of weeks. They kind of went over this, and we have some slides today that we're going to do that. But the history really was it was a pain in the butt. You couldn't compete, right? And there's this whole set of accounts that you can only do services in, right? And now that has changed. So the real history is now, Microsoft realized that they're doing away with the EA. So moving forward, you can't renew your EA. If you're in 500 seats and above, you can't renew your EA. And I think it's going to be reserved for 500 seats to 2,500 seats for right now. The enterprise group of 2,500 seats and above is going to stay the same right now, at least for right now. But they're doing away with it. And really, Microsoft wants all of their customers that are on EAs to transition to CSP, which is a huge opportunity. It's kind of like, if you think about it, it's like, we're behind a fence and there's this whole green field, right? And it's all of us, we're behind this fence, and all of a sudden Microsoft's like, okay, go. Now it's pandemonium. Well, not just yet, but when people start really understanding it, it will be pandemonium, right? Because holy smokes, there's this whole new deal reg thing that you got to be really careful. We're going to talk about that today. So being a part of this session today is going to be great because you're going to be like, yeah, okay, I know what to do. So that's really kind of the history behind it, and I think that if you look at this from a pragmatic point of view, this is a great thing for us and we want to get ahead. So we're going to give you some strategy today to understand how to get ahead of the game so that you can protect your current client base that's there. So that's a little bit about the history.
No, that's great. And you kind of went into the second piece, Sherman, because we were kind of thinking, let's talk a little bit about the primary differences. But based on what you mentioned there, I mean, it was really more exclusive for some of these larger clients, right? And it really seems this actually goes very hand in hand with, if you guys remember, over the last 12 to, last year and a half, the PDM group shrunk considerably. And then a ton of the Microsoft account teams that were targeting these smaller accounts also got phased out as well. So it really seems to me like Microsoft says, on these larger enterprise accounts, we're going to stay, we're going to be locked in, and we're going to be working with them directly. But partner base, it's time. You guys are going to take everybody in that SMB space. It's all yours. So I do think it is a massive opportunity, and it's all about aligning yourself appropriately. And we'll talk about that in a second. That said, I do have a poll here I wanted to share, and that's for the group here. I'm curious what everybody thinks regarding what you're hearing. And let me see if I can get this launched regarding maybe any type of customer issues around it. And it looks like I might have sent the wrong one, but essentially what I'm curious about is what kind of concerns are you hearing from customers out there? I know what I've been hearing a lot from partners is that customers are worried about pricing. They're worried about products not being available in CSP that were available potentially in EAs. So let me see if I can get that out here. But the polls app, unfortunately, is giving me issues, you guys. My bad.
No. It's fine. And actually, before we get into this, Michael, you had a really good question here. Do you want to come off of mute, Michael, and ask a question? I think it's a very good one. Michael Mayo? Let me,
Sure. Can you hear me
yeah,
okay?
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been posting on LinkedIn. We have a whole strategy, marketing campaign that we've been using since the start of this year. And all of the customers we've talked to that are in that level A space are still getting renewal quotes from their EAs. We're trying to find one example of a letter that's went to one of these EA level A customers that said, hey, you're not eligible to renew your EA anymore, and we can't. And really the biggest, the thing I was going to just post in the chat again, the biggest showstopper are the EA clients that have the from SA or existing customer SKUs because they have such a huge discount they got when they went from an on-premise, Office Core Cal Windows Enterprise to Microsoft 365. So we can't compete with the price on that.
Interesting. Yeah, that last piece, yeah, that's another little
But
loophole.
gotcha.
You gotcha, right? Son of a gun. The other one too is if they have a support agreement, right?
That,
Yeah, you're getting
that's where
killed.
we see the biggest opportunity is the support. So we talked to them about the licensing, and they say, oh, our SHI or CDW or whoever is, already quoted our EA renewal, but they're not finding the value in the unified support, not getting all the extras they used to get under the Premier support. So that's where we try to leverage that. So it ends up we start with a licensing conversation. We don't end up getting the licensing, but we have these services opportunities, which are great.
Which are great too, yeah. Okay, and then I'm kind of wondering, when I was at Microsoft and I was talking to partners, I would say, hey, buy the Premier Support contract because you can resell that to some of your clients, and it'd be a big difference because of their Premier Support contract under an enterprise agreement, maybe like 50,000 a year, where you could give them a portion of yours. Michael, have you thought about that? Have you thought about pursing that out or reselling your?
We do that. Yeah, we do that already. We don't sell it as Premier Support, but we sell our managed services with access to Premier Support. So they know when we open tickets, they're always going to have, it's always going to be part of our Premier Support agreement.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Very cool. Hey, thanks for sharing. That's that definitely is a small little thing there. Um, I'm curious so that yeah, if you get any type of evidence of that, if you can get an email, right, please give it to us Please, man, because that shouldn't be happening from their, especially with the mechanism of how to actually get somebody on. So please let us know
Yeah, we're
if you
happy
get
to see
anything.
that mechanism pop up April 1st, but
Yep.
we have again, we can't find one example of a customer that's received a letter from Microsoft that says you can't renew your level EA anymore. So
Oh, you can't. Yeah. Okay. Um, well, I will bring it back to this team. I'm going to go back to. So we're really connected to the Worldwide Partner Group. We do a lot of stuff with them. So
yep.
I'll see what I can do. Okay. Thanks so much, brother. That was a good question. A good thought.
I
All right.
wonder, Sherman, if maybe there's more customers with support agreements than we realize that are on an EA, and that's why Michael's seeing that situation unfold. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that was always a way that Microsoft, sellers were trying to, kind of not game the system, but provide the discounts, add this, add that, their commissions, so there's, trying to make it really attractive, and that is just a kind of a pain to deal with, but that does make sense. So I think, we had some good stuff that the right poll, okay, in there, what objections or concerns are you hearing from EA customers? Yeah. Let's kind of get into that, Andres. The pricing. How does that compare with EA and CSP? Not taking into account what Michael was just saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were talking about it, or you were mentioning it earlier, right? Typically, with an EA, there was huge discounts, or they could provide potentially some SKUs that you couldn't provide in CSP for those customers. However, with the new commerce experience, the idea from Microsoft is that there's parity now, meaning you've got EA customers, you got CSP customers. If they're going whichever route they're going, they're getting similar pricing, if not the exact same, for the vast majority of the workloads that they're purchasing. Now, to your point, Sherman, there might be some additional ways for the Microsoft account teams to throw in a support contract here or throw in some of these additional items, and maybe they're able to get a discount for the customer in that way. But if we're going like for like, 1,000 M365 E5 licenses, they're supposed to be the same through an EA or through CSP. Same thing for Azure. So it's supposed to be priced the same, no issues. And I think the biggest difference between the two paths that is very clear is the terms of payment, right? So on an EA, right, you're typically paying either, for a year or a few years up front, whereas in the new commerce experience, you can actually pay on a monthly basis. Now, there is a premium to that, but you have the opportunity to do that on, these year or 3-year type of commitment. So I think for the customer, you get a little bit more flexibility if you want to be paying on a monthly basis. But really ultimately, and we'll get into it a little bit later, it comes down to the support you can get from the partner. I really think that has to be the main selling point when you're having these conversations with these EA customers, because they may have already been getting that direct support from Microsoft, and so they're used to that. They're comfortable with that, and so you need to get them across the line and understand that you guys have all those same level of skills, maybe even a faster support team for them. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't know if you've heard anything different.
So, one thing I have heard, and the LARs, right? Crayon, Soft Choice, all these companies that were doing all the EAs, their knees are knocking, right? They are nervous and they're getting aggressive. They are getting very, very aggressive because they realize that this is a major portion of their business that could be going away and moving to the partnership. Because just think about that. If 80% of this was their business and all of a sudden now all of these partners are going to come in and claim all that business away from them, they're doing their best, their absolute quickest, fastest way to go in there and figure out how to claim that particular partner and get them to move, or that customer and get them to move to CS, or get them to move to their CSP, which would be an absolute travesty if you're the partner that's in there doing all the work, right? So Andres, can you kind of cover what is the main mechanism that we have to get completed to actually do this, because we can do this in Partner Center. Now, before I get into that, we have a deck here that actually has 7 or 8 slides that actually will show you exactly how to, actually do this manually to work the Partner Center. But I'm going to have Andres talk about it. what is the main thing that a partner is going to have to remember when they want to do this, and how do they protect themselves?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so the first thing I'll say is it depends on what the actual workload is, right? So if we're talking Microsoft 365, Dynamics, or security, that's what I can go through right now, and it's a relatively simple process that Sherman's got slides on. When you're talking about Azure, it's a little bit more complex. And that's because there's not necessarily like a one-click button migration that allows you to go from an EA environment to a CSP environment for the majority of partners out there. And I know I've gotten a lot of feedback from my partner base that they've said, I don't understand the strategy because it's essentially a brand new migration and it's causing, an opportunity for the customer to really just reevaluate what they want to do. That said, it is relatively simple from the modern work side, and that's what I wanted to go through because I think in my mind this really shows you that this is happening and there's a momentum to get this initiative off the ground. And so what you'll notice here, Sherman's got the basic user flow on the screen. Essentially how this works is the customer has to accept an agreement with you inside of Partner Center for as a reseller relationship, right? They associate with you, you send them a link, they accept. And when that actually happens, you're now able to see their EA inside of your Partner Center. So you'll be able to click on them as your customer, and it'll show you this is when their current EA is going to expire. Let's say, for example, at the end of June, or in this case, it's January 23rd of 25, right? And you'll notice it actually tells you what's included, right? In this case, they had 125 licenses for E3, and it also tells you, can you renew this to CSP, right? Not everything is going to be able to get renewed into a CSP agreement. It's just the reality. However, I think one of the most important takeaways that I want to make very clear, and you'll notice if you go through these slides later on, it specifically spells it out, because I know this was a big question for a lot of partners. Yes, if you have a current agreement that has Teams inside of the enterprise suite, if you renew it inside of your renewal window, you can actually keep Teams as a part of that license agreement. So what does that mean for these EA customers? It's a really big deal, because if they can't renew the EA and they're going to have to go through CSP, if they don't do it within their required timeline, it's going to be a lot more expensive for them moving forward, because they're going to have to start paying for Teams separately. Now, there's also another caveat I want to throw in there that's, I think, very important for everybody to understand. And it's nice to see a lot of us who answered the poll already have something in place for how we're targeting these customers. I think that's absolutely critical, because it's all about timing here, you guys. When the customer accepts the relationship with you as the partner inside of Partner Center, and you go through the process of selecting Renew to CSP, you're essentially locking in that customer to work with you directly.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Pin for a second. I was going to repeat that, but on the user experience, okay, can a partner right now go into their Partner Center and see all their customers that are eligible for EA renewals? Right now, without doing anything, without sending any type of relationship, can they see anything?
Only if they have the relationship with that specific customer.
Okay, that's what I want to get at here. Is right now, if you go to the portal and you go to Home, Customers, Customer List, and Channel Transfers, when you hit Channel Transfers today, right now, you're going to see nothing in there. Okay, because what you need to do is list all of your EA customers first, and you need to send them the link, okay, to become or to create that relationship, the CSP relationship, okay, the reseller relationship. When they click on that and they say yes to that, okay, then you're going to see the information in the partner portal.
Yes.
Okay, that's really, really important to understand. So now I'm going to get back to let's talk about and this. Remember what I said earlier about, hey, it's the wall is going to lift up and we're all going to be running, right? Well, I bet you right now all of these LARs are doing this right now. So let's go back to that point that you made about locking in your customer. Let's reiterate that. You want to reiterate that?
Yeah, so you see right there where Sherman's showing on his screen, it's underlined in blue. It says Renew in CSP, okay? You'll essentially click on that. It has some other slides where you can click on the exact number of licenses, all these other different things. The point is, when you go through that process and you submit that, you're basically telling Microsoft that with the customer's consent, they've decided to work with me and I will be their CSP moving forward with X number of licenses. And you're locked in. The only person who can remove that, they actually mentioned this on the call, is you now as the partner. So the faster you get to this exact moment and you renew it, the likelier you are to actually have that customer work with you directly because you're in charge of it now. And so the reason I'm saying this is a lot of times these larger customers that have EAs today, they're working with several services partners for different types of opportunities. And so if you're one of the 3 partners they're working with, let's say, and one of the other 3 gets ahead of you and they establish the relationship and they click renew, even though you're way more qualified, they like you more, guess what? They're locked in unless the customer can convince them to release that. So the faster we get here, the more impactful it's going to be for your business. And I would definitely suggest we get moving on that ASAP.
I would like to get you guys. Can you guys give me a reaction here, like a thumbs up? Do you guys, for the folks that are here, does that make sense to you guys? Give me a reaction because this is so important. I'm just making curious. Okay, Jeffrey. All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, good, Bruce. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is the crux of it, and I know that these LARs are doing their best, and they're just calling their customers like, oh yeah, no, we have your EA. Remember, we're the ones that did this for you. Hey, by the way, I'm just gonna go ahead and send you this relationship, reseller relationship, so when we get to the renewal, we can help you out. Is that okay? And then the customer's like, oh yeah, sounds okay. But now what happens to you? Uh-oh. You can't do anything. So really super duper important for us to understand this piece. Now when you're looking at these slides, then this is going to be delivered to all of you guys for you. We basically highlighted the ones, and it basically kind of just does a walkthrough, right? So enable subscriptions into CSP. It's very simple. I'm not going to go through all these things, but okay. As you can see in here, it says second partner can't claim something already scheduled by another partner. Now, how I would explain it to a customer is like, hey, we're going to go ahead and send this. You might get a notification in the email. We're not doing anything now. What we're doing is just trying to pre-plan, get ahead of the game. So it's probably going to be 3 months from now. We'll go ahead and do this. And then you can also say, we can just evaluate, right, with that, but I need to do this. So it's very similar to like, Cisco deal registration now. You put in your company and you're there, you're getting that deal, right? So it's like the first time I think Microsoft has done that, so interesting to note. All right, let me get into.
I had a question for you, Sharp. If you were a partner today, right, and you had, let's say 5 of these EA customers you've done some services with in the past, and you said, you know what, I'm trying to convert a few of these, I want to be their CSP. How are you positioning yourself to make yourself as attractive as possible? Do you have any thoughts or any opinions you want to share with everybody here? Because I think that's also a very important piece of this.
Well, I think it's, in my opinion, it's going back to the basics of who you are, right? And what do you do, right? I mean, you're already servicing the client. And I think I would harp up on, support. I would harp up on support and how hard is it to get support on your licensing, and especially if they didn't have a premier support contract in their EA, right? Then it's just like impossible to get any support on things. And I think that's really where I would hang my hat on is first on support. Second, I would really talk to them about the advantages and disadvantages of having maybe 80% on a 1-year agreement and 20% on a month-to-month to kind of help them manage through seasonality, right, with their licenses. Providing them options, providing them different ways of looking at different types of SKUs. And then I would say, hey, you've been constantly locked into these 3-year agreements. We haven't seen prices go up. We've seen prices go down, and we might be able to help out with even a little bit of margin, maybe 2-3% of your 15 or 18 that you're getting, right? So I think that there's really 2 things: maneuverability, but also support, right? Maneuverability inside of the contract, but also support from what you do on a daily basis. Give you a call right away, as opposed to first calls to India, second calls, then transfer to the Philippines, then the Philippines is transferred to South America, and then the fourth call finally gets you to a U.S. based services representative, right? Everyone hates that. We all have to do that. Even my guys have to do that sometimes when we're trying to track down somebody, right, or track down something. It just makes it, makes you want to just scream, with that. So I think that's interesting. Andres, we've had a conversation with a couple enterprise reps. Remember, we had that with our partner on the East Coast. I don't want to say names, but remember we talked to him. We were very specific about the pricing, and you want to kind of just talk a little bit about that conversation. What came from the horse's mouth? The salesperson that was selling.
Again, right? Everybody's got their own motivations, but trustworthy source, I'd say, right? The end result of that conversation for us, which was big for me, because throughout the years I've been working here, my biggest concern always for partners was that, especially in these types of channel conflicts that you were talking about, Sherman, it always felt like it was a partner was bringing a knife to a gunfight, so to speak, right? Like it felt like they were overmatched. They just didn't have the same capabilities to try and close that deal. And so when he told me, he said, "Look, I'll be honest with you. I don't care if I sell this through an EA or through CSP. I make the same amount of money either way." That was a very eye-opening line for me to hear, because to me what that means is that, okay, there is an incentive to work with you if you can show value as a partner to not only the customer but also the Microsoft account team. And so I think this goes hand in hand with a lot of things that we talk about, Sherman, just in general, maximizing your Microsoft relationship. When you start getting involved in these deal registrations and co-selling and doing all these different things, you've got to have this. You've got to have something that you're bringing to market that's different from everybody else. I know everybody says that, but it's just the reality, right? There's so many partners out there. Why do these account teams want to work with you in the first place? Because now they're incentivized to a certain extent. If they think you can provide better service than they can, and they make the same amount of money driving that same sale with the customer, why wouldn't they do that, right? I don't know if you've got any additional thoughts on that, Sharon, but that was my biggest takeaway personally.
Well, yeah, actually, Michael, do you mind if I ask you another question? If you come off mute, I don't know if you're still there or not listening, but I'd like to ask you one more question.
Sure.
And it's so for the deals that you're working with the EA, have you done deal registrations and try to get a hold of the account executive on each one of those deals?
There's not really any deal registration you can do with CSP. So,
No. So co-sell,
is that
like
what
a co-sell registration.
we have done that. I don't think it seems to make a difference, though. And some of the other problem is that some of those level A customers aren't managed to begin with. It's just the LSP that's renewing it, whether it's an SHI or CDW or whoever.
Okay. Okay. Because you know what we've done in the past, and this might be a good strategy for you, Michael, is like when we talk to customers who wanted to work with Microsoft sellers, right? Some of our partners, we'll say, hey, give us your list of customers that have EA agreements that are above for the past 2 years, right? And they'll give us a list of like 12, 5, depending on who they are, 20, right? And we take all of those and we actually go into co-sell deal registration and we register that as an opportunity. Now, I know it's not necessarily a current opportunity, but really the reason we're doing that is because we want to get a conversation with that rep, get on the phone with that rep. And then we explain to them, hey, did you know that we're in here? We're already doing this. By the way, we see there's an EA to, EA, conversion. Do you have any thoughts on that? Are you already talking with the LAR? And we found great success with that. Michael, would that be an approach that you think you'd want to take? I mean, we're happy to give you the playbook on that if you want it, but would that be something you guys think that might be better work, would help you guys work out a little better when you're talking to the Microsoft rep?
I think it's possible in certain cases, but again, I think the showstopper is always those from software assurance discounts.
Yeah.
Where they have their cost is like their price is pretty much at our cost. We're making maybe 2 or 3 points of margin, and nobody can feed their kids for 2 or 3 points of margin. So, But
Yeah,
that's
very good,
typically
very good.
what we run into. The ones that don't have the from SA discounts, those are kind of no-brainers. I mean, we take those over all the time. It's just the ones that still are stuck with those from software assurance discounts.
Gotcha, gotcha. That makes sense. And if anyone else has any comments or questions, I'd really like to hear, if anyone's run into anything else. But, Andres, let's kind of dive into something a little bit different that we do every day. It's, what I was just talking about, what we know that Microsoft co-sell. Oh, actually, we have a question
Yeah,
here.
Bruce has a question. Why don't we let him ask you?
Bruce, well, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Chairman and Andreas. I just wanted to chime in with a conversation I had with some SMCC sellers.
Yeah.
And to clarify on, does it matter to them if it goes through CSP or not? If it goes month-to-month CSP, then it's an impact on them. If it goes annual prepaid CSP, then they get their commission. So otherwise, it bleeds the commission every month. So their preference was, yeah, if you guys are willing to work with your clients to get annual CS or annual payment on the licenses, then we're happy for it to go through CSP. So just a little bit of a nuance on that directly from some of the sellers.
Dude, thank you. That is great. And that's why we have this forum here. It's like for us to all kind of like get some of these things right. We can be better, right? So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
exactly. You bet.
Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
All right. Yeah. So let's talk about strategy. I know we're going a little off topic here, but we know that with co-sell deal registration, and you should all have access to that. It shouldn't be hard to get into that. Our idea is, you take 2 years worth of accounts, last 2 years, with or without opportunities. It doesn't matter. I think that the purpose of taking those last 2 years and registering them is to get meetings with Microsoft. Now, we know that 17% of all only 17% of co-sell deal registrations are actually accepted by Microsoft. Okay, so think about that. A lot of submissions are not even getting looked at, right? Now, we have a 96% acceptance rate. So with that being said, Andres, can you talk a little bit about the strategy? Like what are we doing to help the partners here out? They can do themselves, but what do we do that we're getting 96% of our submissions, we're getting a meeting with a Microsoft seller?
I think the biggest thing, as simple as it sounds, is honestly just effort. I know that sounds a little oversimplified, but what do I mean by that? Everybody can
What do we
register.
create? What do we create? What do we like that kind of stuff? And then how do we touch all that stuff?
Yeah, so I think that is definitely a fundamental piece of that is visibility, right? So we're creating collateral for the partners we're working with that help tell a story to these Microsoft account teams about what they do, what they specialize in, and how they help them retire quota inside of their sales plays. That is one of the most important things that we do, because you got to figure, right, these account teams, they're getting inundated with messages every single day from partners across the globe, customers across the globe, for attention and support. And I'll tell you, just from my personal experience digging into this, I mean, I sometimes don't get responses from these account teams after 5, 6, 7, 8 emails, right? So if you're out there registering a deal, not providing really any details, not sharing any information about who you are, and sending one email, well, it makes total sense why nobody wants to speak with you, right? A lot of times these account teams, they don't want to waste their time. So they want to be very clear about, okay, I know who I'm speaking with, I know why I'm speaking with them, and I'm giving ample opportunity in order to go ahead and actually have this conversation. And some partners see that and they say, well, I don't want to work with somebody who doesn't want to work with me. But the reality is you're going to get out what you put in, right? So I think that is a fundamental reason why we're seeing more success there. And honestly, if you can try and bring something to market that is solving a specific sales play for the account teams, I see a lot of opportunity in those specific scenarios. Speak their language, talk about the specific workloads they're looking to push this year. It's not a surprise that AI has become such a big topic for a lot of these account teams, it's everything Microsoft's talking about 24/7, right? So a year ago, if you didn't start talking about AI with these account teams, they didn't want to talk to you. So the winds are changing, and we're going to see some really cool updates, I'm sure, here in the next couple months, as Sherman mentioned, with the end of the year coming up, and we'll be ready to strike when the opportunity's hot.
So we create 3 pieces of content. So this is what you should do. One is a one-pager, okay, that talks about why a Microsoft rep wants to work with you, right? Then a little bit about what you do and then how your sales plays. We create a 5-page PowerPoint that is who you are, and once again, it's kind of like a bigger explanation of the one-pager. And then we create an infographic, which is 60-second commercial, and the reason why we create these 3 different documents is everybody consumes information differently. Right? And if we create these things and we send them to the rep, because we're asking them, we do the deal reg, we find out who the rep is, and then we literally reach out to that rep 6 to 8 times. Okay, email, LinkedIn, we're trying to get them on the horn. Okay, and we're like, look, and then we send them that information so they have an understanding of who you are, and if they say, oh, sales plays, they get it. Okay, I'll have a talk to them. Now, I'm going to share something that is super secret today that we found out recently, and it is working like no one's business. It's unbelievable. So most of the time when partners are talking with a Microsoft account executive, this is how the conversation goes. They talk about, okay, this is the opportunity. Who do you know? Who do I know? Let's talk about this. Let's go together. Then the good partners are saying, hey, but by the way, before we end the call, we do this very well, right? We do a jump start. Can I take a look at a list of your clients, right? Your current and your customer base, because that's what we really want to get to. Each one of these SMC reps has 30 to 40 clients, right? That they're working, and they can't touch them all, right? So the good partners are like, hey, can you open up your account base? Now, that may seem good and fun and great. Awesome, I won. I got a thing. But the problem with that is it's just the names, okay? And then what happens is the Microsoft seller was, well, who else do you know, right? And so that's one-to-one. So this is the secret. This is what we stumbled upon this about 5 months ago, and it's in play. So at the end of one of my calls, I was actually with a partner, with an account rep at Microsoft, and I said to them, I said, hey, thanks for sharing your list of accounts. I said, my partner here is a leader in AI and probably one of the first partners that did jump starts, inside for Microsoft, right? They've got all the SPDs, they got the advanced specializations, bing, 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 bing. They're qualified. What we would like to do for you, Mr. or Mrs. Microsoft seller, is we'd like to put on a webinar or a panel discussion for all of your clients about getting ready for AI, and then the call to action would be doing a AI jumpstart. Now, what was interesting is I threw it out there just kind of to see what happens. I like to do that. I like to put fishing rod, put poles in the water and see what happens. And it was like the Moby Dick whale came out of the pond and bit onto this thing. Like, yes, we want to do it. So get this. So we went from getting one meeting or talking about one account to all of a sudden the Microsoft rep said, yeah, here you go. And then I said, well, we'll take care of all the details. We'll do the registration page. We'll put this whole thing on for you. We'll send you the questions that we're going to be asking. We'll make it a Q&A, right, type of deal. There's no risk. Don't worry about it. They bid on it. And then we were able to actually do a webinar in front of, it was like a webinar, but it was a webinar session in front of 35 of their clients at once. Now think about that, okay? Now I'm letting this cat out of the bag because the reality is you may or may not need our help with that. We can help you, we can talk to you about that, but nobody else is doing that. Every person that's out there talking to these account reps is asking, oh, can I get your list of accounts? Yes, great. Which ones do we work on? Yes, great. Blah, 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 blah. Now, I've always been of the school of thought of never be like anybody else and try to push the limits, push the boundaries. And it'd be surprised. This is the other thing that I learned. If you never ask, you'll never know the answer. So we just asked. We're like, hey, can we do a webinar for all of your clients at once? Can you send the invites? Can you do that? Right? And the Microsoft rep said, yeah, I'll do it. This is crazy. It's the craziest thing ever. So anyways, that's secret sauce to really expand. If you're trying to work that channel, that's how you really work that channel, right? Then you do one really good one, and now all the other reps on that team who are having troubles getting their AI number up, hey, go to that, right? We're just blowing it up inside of inside of that channel because we've kind of figured out this little secret sauce and how to maneuver through it. So it's kind of cool. So, anyways, I just want to share that with you. Now the support, Andres. Actually, just go to that product liability or limitation. I know you touched on it really quickly, but what was the one SKU that was the one that people were like, oh my God, this is not.
Yeah, I'll reiterate because it was actually the one that got the most questions. Everybody was asking about it. Is Teams going to be included in the new CSP SKUs for enterprise E3 or E5? And it's unofficial Microsoft documentation from the call. So I feel pretty confident, and I know, Sherman, it's on the deck you're sharing with everybody, that yes, it will be included. So as long as they renew inside of the renewal window, there won't be any issues. The problem will come if, I want to say it's 60 to 90 days, I believe, is the maximum time after the EA expires when they can actually renew it. If they wait past that time period, it's essentially like they're starting from scratch and they're going to have to buy them separately. So, I think that's another selling point for some of these customers who may have been notified they won't be able to renew again, that they have to pick a CSP if they want to get a better deal, right? And I'll highlight it. You're talking about license and product availability, Sherman. I think that's really also another thing that I would also lean into as a partner is the flexibility you're going to provide these customers through CSP, right? Because when you're locked in on a 3-year agreement with an EA, you don't really have a lot of flexibility in terms of the products that you're utilizing. With CSP, you're gonna be able to try some things here, add some licenses here. Now, it's not necessarily super easy, super simple, but it's possible. And so I think the flexibility you definitely want to lean into. Obviously, the support is a critical aspect of that you just have to showcase your capabilities there. And then again, like I just mentioned, you get to keep teams, which I think for a lot of customers, especially with a ton of licenses, it's going to be a big win. So I'm not sure if there's any questions on anything else from the group here. We'd love to answer anything else that you guys were looking to learn specifically about this. But hopefully that answered your question.
Somebody did put in, what objections or concerns are you hearing from EA customers when discussing CSP as Trump? So evidently Trump is involved here. Okay,
tariffs.
Tariffs. He's tariffing and he's doging. He's using the Doge to send people after and see about that. Maybe we need Elon to go investigate these Lars and see what they're doing. I don't know. Anyways, we do have one more poll here. Let's go and launch the next one. I think I can do it. I think I can launch it. And this is just if you're interested. Would you like to schedule a strategy call to discuss EA to CSP? We'd be happy to talk to you guys if you're interested. And we don't share the results of anybody who is or who isn't, on there. So go ahead and submit, yes or no. We're happy to just talk to you about it and see what's what basically. So happy to do that. All right. Actually, we're kind of. Let me just see.
If I could throw in another just kind of random fact, Sherm, for the group here. You guys have stuck on with us. I appreciate it. This news came out a little over a month ago, but I really didn't see any big updates about it anywhere. And so I wanted to share with the group in case you're unaware. If you have an Azure SPD, solution designation, through the SMB path, you actually have unlocked deployment funds depending on which Azure solution designation you have. If you got the infrastructure path, you actually have deployment funds from migrations. And if you have the data and AI or the application, digital and application innovation SPD, you have access to analytics deployment funds as well as AI app deployment funds. It's something that beforehand was only available if you had the specialization. Now, you don't have the assessments and some of these other additional accelerators, but if you get a customer committed to move into Azure, you could get them $5,000 to do the actual movement now as an SMB partner for an Azure designation. So I haven't seen that really marketed in a lot of different places. I've only seen it in like one article. And so if you were unaware, pretty big news. So I just wanted to share that.
And then also, we did find if anyone here is having trouble adding customers to get your modern work designation, okay? If you're having trouble getting that, we have found a loophole. A wonderful, 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 wonderful loophole to be able to do that. So, schedule a meeting with me. I'm going to put my Calendly link in there, .com/Crancer. I'm putting in the chat window. Go ahead and do that. And I think somebody submit something in the Q&A. Let's see if there was somebody.
Lance is asking us, as a small MSP, would it make sense to partner with another partner instead of taking the time to figure out the whole Microsoft landscape? I mean, that's you could take that question a lot of different ways, but I always think, especially as you're getting started, getting as much support is not a bad thing. But I'm curious what you think, Sherman.
Yeah. So Lance, you know what it is. I think if somebody, and once again, I'm not trying to sell this, but schedule a meeting with us. Go to the chat window. Let's schedule a meeting with us. We just need 5 minutes to look at your partner center. And I'll let you know in 5 minutes with like 3 different views whether you probably should be partnering up with somebody, and then we can put you in touch, with somebody if not, because it really kind of depends. Because with this new loophole that we found to get modern work customers, net customer ads, it might be worth just doing that. It's very, very simple, and there's a cost to it, but it's nominal when you think about the benefits. The ROI on it is about 30 to 1. Okay, when it comes down to it. So yeah, Lance, if you want to because we'll just look at your customers. We're going to look at your earnings. We're going to be looking at incentives and whether it's even, realistic for you. Happy to share that. We do that a lot. We have a lot of phone calls that come back and forth. Now let's see. Is there any other questions? All right. So I posted my link in the window to get a meeting with me. But just to reiterate, next month is going to be co-op. We're going to get into all the little things co-op and maybe some incentives. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. If you haven't already registered, if you're registered for the lifetime, you'll already have it there. But let's go ahead and get the link. You want to put the link in the window, folks, please, Riva or Andres, just in case.
Yep.
There you go. You can go ahead and register for next one. We're going to be talking about, stop missing out on Microsoft co-op dollars. And I'll have cash with me on that one. So anyways, Andres, thanks so much for hearing. Everybody, thanks a lot for spending the hour with us. We'll be back at the end of next month. I want to say thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Tell your friends. We'd like to get more people to this. We'd really, and let them know that we're not here to sell anything. We're here to actually solve problems and solve issues, and discuss and work with each other. But thank you once again. Thank you, Andres. Thank you again. Thanks everybody for coming. And we will see you next month. All right. Have a great day. Take care.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.